All right, today we're going to be learning about the Eastern Woodlands. Open up your social studies notebook and look on the United States map where they were located. It says kind of right in the name, Eastern Woodlands, so on the East Coast. So find that, and while I read the article, be thinking about where they lived. All right, today we're looking at the Eastern Woodlands. Get out your reading and social studies notebook, turn to your social studies, the map that we did and pasted in your notebook, and look at the United States map. On the eastern side of the United States, on the East Coast, where like New York, North Carolina, Florida, that's the east. The Eastern Woodlands. Find that number and look at that area. Follow along as I read and go to highlighter, because before we even begin, we're going to highlight all the bold words. And I will tell you this because 9, 10, 11. So maybe one you don't use. Please follow along as I read though. There are many tribes within the northeastern region. The tribes are grouped according to their language: Iroquoian, Algonquin, and Swayan. In earlier years, the powerful group of Indians was formed, called the Iroquois League of Nations. The league was formed when 5 nations, the Cayuga, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, and the Seneca, came together to form an alliance of North Americans who spoke the same language, believed in the same gods, had similar customs, and considered cooperation to be an important quality of everyday life. It was created to protect themselves from enemies and to discuss their beliefs and issues. Within this league, they developed a great council, a central government to represent each nation. Their primary purpose was to keep the great law of peace, which said that Iroquois should not kill each other. They also made important decisions and laws to each tribe and village. The Iroquois League of Nations is still going strong today. The Eastern Woodlands region has many resources for survival. The soil of the region is fertile and able to support crops. So right there, fertile means able to support crops. There are rivers, lakes, and coastal waters to use for drinking water and fish for food. There are large forests which were home to the animals the early peoples hunted. Rainfall is moderate, which helps the crops flourish. Since this area is rich in natural resources, the early peoples were able to be hunters, gatherers, fishermen, and farmers. In the eastern woodlands, there are a wide variety of animals to hunt. Animals roam through the vast forests and often migrate along the rivers and streams. Some animals commonly hunted in this area in the earlier days were bear, deer, raccoons, rabbit, and elk. Beavers make dams in the rivers, and the early peoples often hunted them for their skins. The rivers are also home to many different types of fish. The early peoples mostly traveled by foot and by canoe when hunting and fishing. Their canoes were made out of birch bark and held together by tree gum. 3 sisters, longhouses, clan mothers, wigwams, faithkeeper, the peacekeeper, wampum belts, and tomahawk. I already did it. How many words are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry. I need to move this a little over. Oops. Bear with me while I try to move it. There we go. These early peoples were able to gather food grown in the wild and also farm their own foods. The bushes of the forest provided a great supply of berries, and rivers and coastal waters provided fish and shellfish. The peoples in the eastern woodlands also grew and harvested crops such as corn, beans, squash, pumpkins, and melon. I'm just going to highlight that or underline that because I think I'm going to have to come back to that for our notes. Food was and still is plentiful in this region. Corn, squash, and beans are called the three sisters. When grown together, they thrive and are better for the environment. The different parts of these crops help each other. The result is more crops being produced. Since the early peoples of this region did not have to go far for food, their homes were sturdy and made for permanent residence. Most of them lived in long rectangular buildings called longhouses. That makes sense. The frames of a longhouse were made of wooden poles and young trees, which were then covered over with bark. Several families lived in one longhouse. Longhouses were run by the clan mothers. They had power in the clan and were responsible for choosing members to lead the tribe. Today, clan mothers continue to hold important responsibilities. Some include working with the chiefs to make decisions for the people and deciding when ceremonies begin. Other early people lived in smaller homes called wigwams. They had wooden frames and were covered by woven mats and sheets of birch bark to form a dome shape. The peoples of the eastern woodlands have many traditional beliefs and customs. Some of the traditional ceremonies use masks, dances, music, and face paint. The colors of face paint represent different meanings. They have a faith keeper. This person is entrusted to uphold the traditions and values of the clan. One of these beliefs is about a spiritual being called the peacemaker. He was a messenger who brought the message of the great peace. According to a tribal member, it took a long time to change the minds of the early fierce warriors. Another tradition is making wampum belts, and you'll be watching a video next, from stringing shells together. One Wampanoag member explains that he connects to his ancestors while creating the shells. Then he lights a fire to give thanks and pray to the Creator. The wampum belt are used for tribal ceremonies, telling stories, and treaties between tribes. It empowers that person to show the belt as a representation of the people. The early eastern woodland peoples were skilled at war with their tribes and Europeans. One of the weapons was the tomahawk, a small axe that could be thrown. Another was the bow and arrow. The Mohawk Nation was where the Mohawk hairstyle originated. It was originally a way to intimidate enemies during war. The Mohawks would pull or pluck their hair out, not shave like we do today, to look fierce and frightening. Assignment that we're going to be completing, or you are going to completing, you need those bolded words. So there are 10 questions. Those are the eastern woodlands. So now you need to go and fill in the blank with the correct word from the text. When you are done with this, submit it and go and watch the video on the wampum belts. You'll have to scroll down in the link a little and look for the play arrow.